Welcome to KELA's Let's Talk About It. Discussions on a variety of topics of interest to Southwest Washington area listeners. Write down our listener call-in number and keep it handy. 330-5352. That's 330-KELA. You're invited to join in with your calls now at 330-KELA. Views expressed on this show are those of the host, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of the station, its management, or advertisers. Daily programs are recorded for playback, podcasts, and promotional purposes. And now, let's talk about it.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Let's Talk About It show, AM1470, KELA and KELAAM.com. I'm your host, Peter Abbarno. The call-in number on this happy Thursday, 360-330-5352. Today, we're starting the conversation off with Referendum 90. This is a referendum to repeal the mandatory sexual education. A law passed this year and signed by the governor about a month ago. And this would give voters an opportunity to repeal the law. Referendum 90 needs 129,000 signatures from registered voters, and time is ticking. And then you get to vote. You get to vote whether or not you want to repeal that. So we're going to talk about events coming up and opportunities to sign the petition. One opportunity is going to be right after this show, right across the street here from KELA Radio Studios on South Gold Street in Centralia from 9 to 10. The show's 8:30 to 9, as you know. So at 9 o'clock, walk across the street. We're going to be signing the petition, and you can drive up. Gloves, mask, whatever you want. Grab your pen, sign it, and we'll get you, as long as you're a registered voter, and you will help to get this initiative or this referendum on the ballot. So for me, and I'm going to fully disclose because I think it's important as the host of this show to also fully disclose where I am on some of these issues. The issue of sexual education is very personal to me. Not only is my wife a math teacher, but my kids are in elementary school. And so the issue of forcing mandatory sexual education on them is very bothersome, to say the least. But I do believe that if there is going to be sexual education, that it needs to be left to local school boards in conjunction with local families. I believe Olympia continues to pass legislation that erodes local control and family decision-making. We should be encouraging families to be part of this process and the discussion at the local level, because we know that our community is not one-size-fits-all with Seattle or Bothell or maybe even Yakima. We're all a little different, and that's why local control is so important. There's going to be dissenters saying, on R90, saying, your heads are in the sand and you need to recognize that kids are going to learn about sexual education regardless of what you do. But I think this issue is much more complex than merely, are you for or against teaching sexual and health education? This issue is about who should teach it, where it should be taught, when it should be introduced, and it should include families. This is so important to include families. If we're going to lift families out of poverty, if we're going to break these destructive cycles that children learn, if we're going to do that, then we need to empower families and communities. And that's where I stand on this issue. And that's why I'm supportive of the R90 petition signing, the drive-through today, and then we'll talk about the other ones. And that's why I have my good friend Kelsi Hamilton as my co-pilot today on the show. Give us a call. What are your thoughts and opinions? 360-330-5352. Good morning, Kelsi. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So let's talk a little bit about R90 and how you got involved in this whole process.
So I got involved in this process actually a couple years ago. This bill was introduced first in the 2019 regular session, and it died in the session but picked up speed this year. I got involved in it. My professional life, I'm a lobbyist for our statewide trade association, so I spent a lot of time in Olympia. And this bill made it very clear to me that we need to have more balance in our legislature. The majority party didn't take any feedback at all whatsoever from Republicans. It was very clear that this was a very one-sided issue. OSPI requested this legislation. They had 9,850 messages were sent to the governor on this issue opposing this bill. There were 59 that supported it, and he still signed this bill into law. I totally agree with you that there are a lot of problems with this. For me personally, one of the issues that I take with this bill and this legislation is that what is age appropriate?
Right. Right.
What's age appropriate to one person may not be age appropriate to another. And from what I have seen, when I first started looking at this, I'm a big fan of doing independent research on this, not necessarily believing everything you see on social media. I started seeing different groups out there. There are a lot of groups. Informed Parents of Washington is one of them, that they've really been leading the charge on this issue, putting out examples of curriculum. And as I was seeing this, some of it, it was horrifying. It's not age appropriate. So I started doing some independent research and looking up some of the curriculums that they were putting out and looking them up myself to see, is this true? Did they alter this? And they didn't. This is real stuff. And then when I looked further, one of the big ones that they've put examples out is the 3 R's curriculum. And I thought, well, they're putting this one out because, it's the most inappropriate and it's the one that's going to shock people the most. And when I did more research on it, looking at OSPI's website, the 3 R's curriculum is currently the only approved curriculum for grades kindergarten through 5th grade.
And so do you have kids in school?
I do. I have 3 children in school. I guess I don't even know what grades they're in anymore now that is the school year complete or not.
Right.
But 7th grade, 5th grade, and 1st grade are I've got 3 daughters in Chehalis Public Schools, and try to be fairly engaged in what's happening in their school, attended school board meetings, actually really proud of the partnership of the Chehalis School District. There was a small group of us parents that went to them, and they actually did vote unanimously to send a letter to Governor Inslee requesting that he veto this bill. Disappointed that I think that a lot of people are going to take their frustration out on the local school boards and the school districts and the teachers that are being mandated to now deal with this. And it's not the school board's fault. This is something that's coming from the legislature. And so I hope people will engage respectfully with their school boards and their principals and teachers on this issue, because we certainly need to sympathize with what they've been dealt.
Right. And I think the key term is mandatory, and it's mandatory that it be taught. And if you have an opinion on mandatory sexual education, Referendum 90, give us a call here, 360-330-5352. Lines are wide open for Kelsi and I to maybe answer some of your questions about what's going on. What I thought was one of the more interesting aspects of this, if you look at the timeline, and you started off with the bill in 2019 and then going forward in 2020, but didn't OSPI do a big poll and survey of folks? And it was actually pretty large. It was like 10,000 or so, asking people whether or not they wanted this mandatory sexual education. And I think it was close to 60% opposed it, but he still pushed this forward.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
And the other interesting thing, OSPI also did a study group. What I've learned in my experience with the legislature is that's one of their little ins, is they create these stakeholder study groups to study an issue, and then the next year they come back with all this great research and data, and that's how they get a bill to pass. But what I know of their study groups is that they stack the groups with people that already agree with them. And so it was really interesting. The OSPI study, all of the individuals that were on this group, which I believe they even had some parent contributors on it, they all sided with OSPI's stance on this. And so it was really interesting when you have 60% of the state that's taken the survey saying we don't think this is a good idea, but no dissenting views in their study group. I think it's a little flawed, and I think it's pretty obvious that they think that their study group knows more than those that took the survey.
Yeah. And I like how you say that, because it seems like that's not just the Olympia way, but even the DC way. We're going to create our own study group with the people that are going to say what we want them to say, and then we're going to hang our hat on that. And it's just that's not, as the governor would say, good data.
You're right. Where's the data and science on that?
Where's the data and science? Hey, if you want to call in and share your thoughts, give us a call at 360-330-5352. Good morning. Welcome to the show. You're on the air.
Yeah, morning.
Good morning.
I hear the age appropriate. Now, what are you talking about, after 8th grade or something?
Oh.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. So no, this is not after 8th grade, and this actually starts in kindergarten.
No, what I mean, would it be appropriate to start at the 8th grade, or?
So I think that
Later than that.
yeah, I think the majority of people, myself at least, feel that sexual education is something that should be taught in schools. And I'm not opposed to puberty or reproduction, things like that being taught, in middle school, high school ages. The curriculum that is being pushed for middle school to high school is disgusting. If you see
Yeah.
the examples,
Kindergarten. No, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there should be no sexual education in kindergarten. That should be all health.
Yeah.
That should be all about, safety and those types of things, nutrition even.
well, and I'm glad you brought up the safety piece to this, Peter, because I think that's another thing that a lot of the proponents of this bill will throw at those of us that disagree with it, that they're trying to prevent children from having sexual abuse happen to them. And I think
Right.
that's something that we're all supportive of. We don't want to see our children be abused. And we want to be able to give them tools to protect themselves and their bodies. And that's one thing that I think has not been publicized enough, that in 2018, the Washington State Legislature did pass Substitute House Bill 1539, which was Aaron's Law. It was a bipartisan sponsored bill, and it passed almost unanimously. And that bill was specifically passed to address and prevent sexual abuse starting in kindergarten. So I would encourage people that, are concerned about teaching sexual abuse in our schools to reach out to their local school districts and see how they are implementing Aaron's Law.
And that was the sexual abuse aspect of that was a very moving part of the Senate debate on this, at the last Senate debate. And I think that the conversation, I think it was Senator Dingra was talking about that. It was very emotional and it was very touching. But it kind of went off course because there's already a law, and nobody opposes teaching about bad touching and sexual assault and sexual abuse. I mean, I think that that's kind of a non-starter, should be in this bill.
And the part that concerns me about that is I personally think in some of the curriculums that I'm seeing and the way they want to teach children, the very detailed parts of their sexual anatomy and talk about pleasure and those types of things. I think that this could potentially go the other way and increase sexual abuse in children, because I think they're introducing them to some of these ideas and concepts at a much earlier age than most of us feel is appropriate. And I'm concerned that this could have the opposite effect.
Yeah, and it could. What are your thoughts? 360-330-5352. Share your opinion on mandatory sexual education, Referendum 90. My special guest and co-pilot for the morning is Kelsi Hamilton. And right after the show from 9 to 10, we're going to be across the street from the KELA studios on South Gold. We're going to be having a drive-up petition signing for Referendum 90. We need to get 129,000 signatures by when? Is it like June?
Yeah, it is the first part of June.
Yeah, June 2nd, I think they have to be mailed in because they need to be collected, I think, by June 9th. So it's really important. 129,000, you would think in a big state like this might not be that hard to get. And you're right. If there wasn't social distancing, if there wasn't so many people who are stay at home. And that's why we're going to have masks and gloves and things like that. So it'll be a safe signing. And there's a lot of these going around the state. Good morning. Welcome to the show. You're on the air.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Good. Hey, I'm calling in about your topic here today.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you can talk about the different things that they are teaching. I'm hearing when I'm at the school that they're wanting to talk about different ways that kids can stay safe and different ways that kids can learn about their sexuality, and so that they know about safe touch and things like that. That's what they're pushing that it is about. But then when I'm listening to other areas, I'm hearing that it's about different types, like transgender sex and three ways and different ways that you can, at the middle school and at the middle school level, different ways that sexual experiences can be had. Mm-hmm. And so are they teaching our kids how to have sex, or are they teaching our kids safety? Because in the public, they're trying to push that this is a safety aspect, but in reality, in the curriculums and things, it looks more like they're trying to teach our kids different ways to actually have sex.
Yeah, that's a good question. So let's talk about the curriculum.
I would agree with you on that. And quite frankly, I was thinking, before I came on the show, how am I going to address this question? Because I don't want to talk about what some of the examples of this curriculum are. My children are listening to this show.
Yep.
So I definitely think parents need to go on and see, what some of the examples of these curriculums are. And I wholeheartedly do believe they are trying to teach our kids how to have sex. They're teaching, some of the, pieces in it are role-playing exercises. Right. And they're not appropriate.
Yeah. And so to talk a little bit about, I mean, there's a claim made, and if you read the curriculum, it's tough to disagree with, that some of this is agenda pushing regarding, very non-traditional relationships.
I would agree with that as well. I certainly think that our children all need to be taught to be respectful and kind to all of their peers and classmates, no matter what their sexual preferences, orientation, race, all of those things are, that in anti-bullying, all of that. I totally agree with that. But I do believe that this, one of the standards for especially the elementary ages is to learn that there are lots of different ways that you can express gender. One of the third grade, I believe it was, example lessons was for the kids to write an essay on if they could choose their gender, what gender they would choose and why. And I've talked to some of my friends about this issues, and one of my friends has a daughter that is somewhat of a tomboy. She wants to play football and she doesn't want to wear dresses. And there's some different editorial pieces that I've seen, and some people think that this could confuse kids like that, to think, well, am I a boy or do I want to be a boy? And I think that it's a much deeper issue, and it's not something that, the kids' brains are ready to ponder at such young ages.
Right. And my wife and I talk about this a lot because she grew up a tomboy. She had like 7 brothers. Mm-hmm. And so she was, for all intents and purposes, she was like a little tomboy. But she never questioned whether she was a girl. She
Right.
just liked the things they like to do. In this day and age, there may be a community or a culture that would tell her, well, no, you are a boy now.
Well, and I think other kids could be telling them, oh, you hang out with the boys, you're a boy.
Right.
And that's, something that I think that we need to be prepared for if this is something that is really, truly going to be something we're faced with in our public schools.
Yeah. And it all comes back to, and this is how I feel. I mean, there are folks in Seattle who could be listening to the show right now and say, I don't like what they're talking about. We need mandatory sexual education. But R90 doesn't eliminate the opportunity to have sexual education in the classroom. What it does, though, is it brings it down to the local level. I mean, if you're the parents and the school boards in the local level decide they want to have a certain curriculum, that's one thing. In Lewis County, we might want something else.
Right. And as far as this being part of a bigger agenda, I definitely think it is. This bill was really advocated and pushed by Planned Parenthood. Mm-hmm. I don't think Planned Parenthood has any role in our public school system. Personally, I'm a Christian, and I, pray with my kids, take my kids to church, and I'm certainly not telling, the school system that, they should be teaching my kids how to pray or look into the Bible. I understand there needs to be that separation, and I think that it should be, included for Planned Parenthood as well. They've written some of these curriculums. There is a bigger movement on this issue, and another, bill that I think we're going to be seeing more of now that this bill has passed is there's a big push to put student-based health centers in our schools.
Right.
And that's something that was new last year. I know it's, taken hold in California, has these, and it's not always Planned Parenthood when they start out, but I think there's over 50 schools now in California where Planned Parent is the student-based health center in these schools. And so what that would allow, to happen is, your child could go in and get birth control and get different medications that nothing about right there while they're at school. So I do think this is a, foot in the door, and it's the first inch that they're going to take for a much bigger agenda.
Well, and in 2019, the law was passed. It was signed that went into effect January 1st, where I believe it's if you're 12 or 14 years or older, you don't have to. The child, and they're still children, don't have to disclose, and the doctors don't have to disclose issues like sexual assault, domestic violence, pregnancies, STDs, mental health issues, even
depression.
Suicide.
Yeah. Antidepressants.
And people forget that that's kind of where I started noticing this really big push. I mean, you always see it, but to have a law in 2019 that says that my daughter who becomes 14 can have suicidal thoughts, but you don't include the parents to help address those issues. It's amazing. I mean, that to me, that has to be an agenda. And I believe it is. And it's pretty sad. And it's not empowering families. We need to be empowering families. we need to have stronger families, and it starts in the home. And there are some families that may not be capable of it, and I've heard that criticism as well. But we have to give them a chance. I mean, I would rather give families a chance to be successful than government just come in and try to be the parent. Wouldn't you agree?
I totally agree with that.
All right, you're listening. Let's talk about AM1470 KELA. If you want to share your thoughts and opinions, 360-330-5352. I'm here with Kelsi Hamilton, and we're going to be signing the petition for R90 afterwards, 9 to 10 across the street from the KELA studios on South Gold. Good morning. Welcome to the show. You're on the air.
Good morning. Thank you guys for stepping up. I think if we look at the makeup of the legislature and how it's changed the last couple of years, you start to clearly see that this is more than just agenda pushing, my friends. This is an indoctrination effort.
Yeah.
And if you talk to professionals who deal with these kinds of issues, they will tell you that this is going to just light that all on fire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the concern people have. Yeah. Appreciate the call. Yeah, that was a great call. I mean, right on. I mean, I think it may go, and a lot of people feel this way, that it goes beyond just persuasion and it goes to the forms of indoctrination. And I think a lot of us have seen that. I mean, if Planned Parenthood has a health clinic in a school and we're starting to pre-register voters at 16 and 17, what do you think is going to happen?
That's exactly what's going to happen. They're trying to get more voters for their voter base.
Right.
And I think, I know a lot of people are working today. I mean, some of them, not everybody, obviously. We are planning to do another drive-through petition site on Saturday morning over at the Mountain View Baptist Church on Belmont, kind of near Country Cousin and the outlets. We will be there from 10 o'clock to 11:30. If you're not a registered voter right now, you need to get out and register to vote.
Absolutely.
We need more rural conservative voters out there, and it blows my mind when I hear people aren't registered to vote. But you still can sign these petitions. You just need to be registered to vote by June 10th.
Right.
So get out there and register if you're not.
Yep. And so the dates are, I've got 3 dates, and you tell me if these are right. I got on Friday in Chehalis at Walmart near the grocery door of Walmart. You can sign the petition beginning at 11 a.m. And then on Saturday, there's 2 spots. There's one in Centralia at Mountain View Baptist Church from 10 to 11:30, and that's right by Country Cousin. And then you've got also on Saturday on Route 12 in Packwood, across from Blanton's Market. That's from 12 to 3. So there's 3 opportunities, and there'll be more, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm working on setting up more, and I'm, if you follow Peter's page, you can kind of see the event that we created for today's event, and we'll be updating that with other petition signing opportunities.
Yeah, and I want, and Kelsi, I want to give a great shout out to you. I mean, you've done a ton of work on this. You've really brought this to the forefront. I was getting nervous probably 3 or 4 weeks ago that the petitions weren't getting signed, they weren't getting delivered, and then all of a sudden you came in like a comet out of the sky, and you're everywhere with petitions, and so I appreciate that, and I'm sure the folks out there are appreciative as well. If you're tuning in to Let's Talk About AM1470, we're talking about mandatory sexual education, Referendum 90. My special guest this morning, Kelsi Hamilton. We're going to take a quick break for our sponsors, and we'll be back with your calls right here on the Let's Talk About It show, so stay tuned.
The highest quality clothing and shoes. It's what you'll find at Bartell's. Patagonia, the North Face, Grunt Style, and Cool are just some of the durable, dependable outfitters you'll find at Bartell's. With men's and women's clothing, Bartell's service staff can get you moving in the right direction with great service and quality clothing. And if you need something tailored, they can do it for you right there in the store. Head into Bartell's in downtown Chehalis for men's and women's clothing for any occasion. Formal, business, casual, and Letterman jackets.
Clearing land is not a DIY project. There's so much that goes into doing it the right way. So it's best to hire a professional company like Double Duty Land Management. Brush clearing, land clearing, slash burning, site preparation, demolition, and excavation. They do whatever it takes to make sure your land is cleared the right way. They'll also give you a free estimate of the cost of the entire project. Double Duty Land Management would also like to invite you to like them on Facebook and give you another reminder not to text and drive.
Your vision of the future is clear. The kind of home you want for you, for your family, for your future. Unfortunately, turning that vision into reality isn't always as easy as it seems. You need help from someone who sees what you see, who understands what you want. That would be Heather Stewart.
Hi, this is Heather Stewart with Blade Realty. If you're looking to buy or sell your home, let me be your eyes and ears and help you find a buyer or the type of home and property you're looking for. Find me online at heatherstewartrealtor.com.
When you buy from Ron's Hardwood Floors, here are some things Ron wants you to know. If Ron can't personally guarantee it, he won't sell it. Ron will not cut corners to offer you a lower price. Ron stands by the quality of the products they sell and the craftsmanship of their in-house professional installers and finishers. Quality products backed by a locally trusted company at a fair price. So what are you losing to gain a cheaper price? When trust and quality counts, count on Ron's Hardwood Floors, 1817 South Market in Chehalis. Only the best and never outsourced.
Let's talk about it.
Welcome back to Let's Talk About It, AM1470 KELA and KELAAM.com. I'm your host, Peter Abbarno, and my special guest this morning, Kelsi Hamilton. We're talking about Referendum 90. We're talking about mandatory sexual education. Kelsi, one of the comments I get occasionally is like, what's the big deal? Parents can just opt out.
Yeah, that's a popular one that they like to throw back at us. And my response to that is this stuff is so graphic and so alarming that I think it truly will start to change the culture in our schools. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like it's so easy to just opt out of one lesson or, 1.5 hour, curriculum. But the title of this bill is Comprehensive Sexual Education. And I think one of the goals that we've seen is that they want to integrate this curriculum into all the different subjects. I know one of the examples I saw in high school for ninth graders, they want to integrate this into creative writing classes by having kids write songs about birth control. Mm-hmm. And in math class, they want to talk about probabilities of different birth controls and make them work out equations on what their probability of becoming pregnant would be with different types of birth control. And so to me, this isn't something that you can really opt out of. Kids are going to be talking about this at recess and at the lunch table. And so I think it's a slow shift in the culture of public education. And so that's not something that you can just opt out of.
Well, and I think that if you're going to respect all the views, you have to respect the views of parents who don't want them. And if you're going to opt a kid out, one, I totally agree with you. It's going to change the culture and they're going to learn about it from their friends who point at them and say, you weren't in here. Here's what we talked about. I mean, your child's going to feel ostracized by having to be pulled out, and that should not be the way it goes. That shouldn't be how education should happen.
I agree.
And I think you're right. I mean, the opt-out is kind of a false, or a misnomer, because when you're integrating it in things like math, I mean, math is math. 2 + 2 is 4. It shouldn't be about inclusive or exclusive. Good morning. Welcome to the show. You're on the air.
Hi, this is Arnie Davis calling, and I don't want to take away from this very important subject, and I want to thank you, Kelsi, and you, Peter, for all the hard work you're doing. I just want to remind folks real briefly, this is tax collection day for property taxes, and for those of you that have paid it, your fire departments, your emergency responders, they love their budgets really need that money. For those of you that are negatively impacted by the COVID, please contact our office. We have some options to help you out, and I'll let you get back to your subject matter, but it's tax day, and I wanted to get that out.
Arnie, is it true that taxes don't discriminate?
Amen, brother.
Thanks, Arnie. That's Arnie Davis, Lewis County Treasurer. Talking about taxes, another issue that it bothers a lot of people. Hey, we're running out of time, so let's talk about a few more things that you want to send the listeners with before they head over here for 9 to 10 to sign the petition.
The biggest thing I want to leave these listeners with is to keep up the fight. We don't have to have our state overtaken by King County values. One thing that I think that this bill has been a great thing for is getting people involved. I've been to rallies at the Capitol when it was people's first time ever there. Right. And so I encourage people to just stay involved on this issue, register to vote, and sign this petition, and don't give up. These are our kids. I mean, they want to come after our guns. They want to tax us. They want to do all kinds of different things, but don't mess with our kids.
And support, and the most important thing is support candidates that share your values. That's really important because that's the only way we're going to change Olympia as well. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Kelsi, thank you for showing up and coming and sharing all your information. I appreciate that. And
Thank you.
Thank you for listening, tuning in, calling in to Let's Talk About It. I'm here every weekday morning, 8:30 to 9 on KELA and KELAAM.com. Up next is a Fox News Report, then Rush Limbaugh. I hope to see you from 9 to 10 across the street from this studio.